Hi, this is Ann Holmes with No Sewing Until You Quilt It. It is easy and fun to build a quilt with no sewing in it until after you've made your quilt sandwich. Then you stitch and quilt all at the same time. I like to have two projects going at once. One where I can sit at my machine and stitch and quilt. This was a quilt that I made with no sewing to quilt it. There's no sewing in some of these pieces yet. You can see these pieces are loose and that there's the French Fuse foundation showing. Everything is a turned seam allowance that I use glue stick to turn the edges. But I like to sit in my machine for maybe 30 minutes or so, 35 minutes. And then I go to my work table where I stand. I'm going to demonstrate building a quilt. This is my project, which will be a king-size bed quilt. I'm making it in 3 long sections. Right now, I'm working on this section right now. I drew my design and put a grid over it. And so each of my pattern pieces are approximately 3.5 by 7 inches wide. So this is the quilt. You can see I'm only working on this top section right now. The bottom section is still hanging here on my design wall. I use my design wall more as a bulletin board than I do as a design wall because I build a quilt on top of my working drawing. So when I build, I've added seam allowances to every pattern piece. And then I put my fabric, I'll iron my pattern pieces onto my selection of fabric and cut it all out. And then I use glue stick to turn the edges. And to keep my glue stick fresh, I have a little shot glass here that I put a baby wipe in to keep the glue stick fresh. And for gluing, I turn the edges on a small cutting mat, and then you can take this to the sink and rinse it off when it gets too sticky. Right now I'm going to have my assistant Rachel Smith demonstrate building this quilt.
Hi, I'm Rachel. I'm Ann's assistant, and I'm going to be demonstrating her no sewing until you quilt it technique. As she was talking about, we're working on a king-size bed quilt, so this is the left third panel of it, and we're working sort of from the inside out. We can build it either way. One of the great things about this technique is you can build the pieces how you want to. So we're going to demonstrate building from the inside out so you can see clipping inside curves. If we were working from this way, we wouldn't need to clip the curves because they would be outside edges and they would just turn. So we use our freezer paper pattern pieces, which have numbers that correspond to our cartoon, which is underneath the French Fuse. The freezer paper pattern pieces act as a stabilizer, so we turn back our edges to get the turned edges. I'll hold the paper towards me, our pattern pieces, and I'll turn the edges back to the paper rules. So I'm going to build these 2 curves, this red one and the green one. We've already cut out our pieces using her magic buttons. We've got our seam allowance, and we'll speed it up so you can see it go quickly. Okay, so we've laid down some of our pieces that we sped up that you saw earlier. And one note we wanted to make sure is, so Anne forgot the registration marks on the pieces that we were just working on. You can see them here for the bottom piece of this left-hand side of the quilt. Registration marks are really helpful for placing your pattern pieces when you're getting them all placed together, even though you've got your cartoon underneath. What's nice about the quilt we're working on right now is that it's in a grid fashion, so registration marks are helpful but not as necessary as they were in the like rose window dove quilt that you saw Anne demonstrate on earlier. Registration marks were really important in making sure we kept all of our pieces in order. So just wanted to show you that. So we laid down this red curve that's going to go into another piece of the panel, and we wanted to show you the reveal. So what's important is that you leave pieces, your freezer paper pattern pieces, leave them in place for where you're still going to be adding other pieces. So here, these two together are going to be placed next to 49 and 58. So we're going to leave these here until this piece goes down so that we've got a nice edge to be able to have a turned edge, just like you saw how these ones were already placed down and the freezer paper stayed for where I was building this red curve. But we did want to show you what it looks like when you take off the freezer paper. Because we're working with the front side of the fabric, the nice thing is that when you take these off, and we use a sewer's stiletto to help get underneath the freezer paper doesn't leave a residue, and you can reuse the pattern pieces, which is one of the really lovely things. So because all of these pieces are next to their finished pieces, we can take off the freezer paper pattern and take off this number 50. And one thing you can do is use your sealing iron to help stabilize your pieces as you're pulling off your freezer paper patterns. And then we'll leave these two because we're still going to build out, but this 136 can come off as well. So you can see a piece of the red. So thanks for watching our quick quilt show. For more information, you can visit Anne's website, www.anneholmesstudios.com, for progress on this quilt and many other pieces that she's working on. Thanks!